My name's Josh. I'm the CEO of Gannett Trust. I was sitting here a year ago in the audience thinking about how cool it would be to talk about Gannett at that time. And now I'm here and I can talk about it, which is exciting. We are the first Bitcoin native trust company, which is fun to say. And I think before we get into what that means, because I'm sure I can see already some questions in your mind of like, what the hell does that mean? What's a Bitcoin native trust company? I can first talk a little bit about why we chose the name Gannett. And I'm very tied to place and time. I think there's a good reason for us to be living in this moment in time. And I particularly enjoy the place where I live, which is in Western Wyoming in Jackson, which is where Gannett is headquartered. And we named ourselves after two things related to Gannett. Gannett Peak, which is the highest mountain in Wyoming, which I think is a nice solid foundation for a trust company. And Gannett Peak is actually named after Henry Gannett. And Henry Gannett was the first geologist of the USGS. He is basically nicknamed the father of American map making. And this was really relevant for me because what we do as Gannett is really help folks navigate their financial legacies, their futures, and how they're going to do this in a Bitcoin way. And that just really spoke to me, not only being a mountain, and all trust companies are named after some sort of mountain or edifice or something. So we were chartered in May of 2025 this year by the state of Wyoming. And we're the first, like I said, Bitcoin native public trust company. And I'll get into a little why that's important. And it goes back to something that came up that Matt had mentioned. If we're a fiduciary, and I want to explore that a little bit because it's an old concept. We were talking a little bit about common law on an earlier panel, and there's good reasons why fiduciaries exist, and we are a Bitcoin native fiduciary, and I'll talk about why that's important. We have a couple of different markets that we go after: family offices, individuals, and businesses. And really what we're doing is we're building an institution that's filling a gap. And that gap is that these folks really don't have the types of institutions that they can go to and talk to who understand fundamentally how Bitcoin works and why it's important for building a legacy. So we bring collaborative custody, a multi-signature based approach to what we offer as our products and services. And we're able to do this because we're part of the Unchained family, right? So Unchained has built a deep history of products that are built on collaborative custody, from lending to custody itself to retirement solutions, all of that other good stuff. We meet the needs of private trust and wealth management services. That's where the fiduciary part comes in. We do this thing called qualified custody that gets a lot of notoriety, and all it means is that a company, a publicly traded company, should work with a custodian that is a bank, and under SEC law, a trust company is a bank. And really, a lot of companies don't understand that if they're working with a qualified custodian, they're likely working with a qualified custodian that isn't really a Bitcoin fiduciary. And then the last thing, and this is what drives us every day, is that we're Bitcoin only. We know that our clients are going to come to us with ETH or Dogecoin or Fartcoin or whatever the hell that it is that they have maybe purchased. And our job, again, as navigators, is to help them understand why long-term Bitcoin is that foundation for their legacies. I think all of you may understand this, but the unique property of Bitcoin as a digital asset, as a digital bearer asset, means that you can control Bitcoin only through controlling private keys. So if you place your Bitcoin with a custodian, let's just pick on Coinbase because I heard them mentioned earlier, you may not be actually controlling your Bitcoin at the end of the day. This is a financial product that's existed for centuries. It's similar to how a bank operates with US dollars. You give your US dollars to the bank and then you believe that those US dollars are going to be protected and you can go and get those US dollars later, right? Now, we've had bank runs and other panics in the past, and we think we've solved that situation by introducing things like federal deposit insurance and other risk management things. But really, those examples of panics and counterparty risk that we understand as Bitcoiners have continued to create problems. Not only in the last couple of years in crypto and Bitcoin, but also in traditional financial services, in US dollar-based products. It still exists and it still hasn't been solved. And so what I would say as a fiduciary is if I'm working with a client that wants to protect their Bitcoin for generations or build that as the foundation of their legacy, they should not be working with a custodian or fiduciary that does not understand Bitcoin, because they're likely to take the shortcuts. They're likely to say, oh yeah, just put it in this big pile with everybody else's Bitcoin, and I'm sure when I come back, my Bitcoin will still be there. Instead, why not let them participate in securing that Bitcoin for generations through things like multi-signature wallets, right? We can allow a client of ours to hold a key and cryptographically prove that that Bitcoin has not been moved or misappropriated in any way. Another interesting thing that I came across in speaking with a couple of businesses that want to integrate Bitcoin onto their balance sheets, some of these larger ones are using big custodians, and in order to satisfy some of their audit requirements, because they're publicly traded companies, what they're doing is, instead of simply validating that the Bitcoin exists and that someone that they are contracted with, that custodian, has control, i.e. by using a private key to validate that, instead they're moving parts or pieces of Bitcoin from one wallet to another to prove that they have control. This is nonsense. We have a public ledger that says where the Bitcoin is and the private keys that back that up. And if you have one of those private keys, you can prove to an auditor who understands Bitcoin and cryptography, which is a very small subset of auditors, but you can prove to them that beyond a reasonable doubt that you have control. And so my suggestion here is, why don't we use these tools that exist? Let's not use the big honeypot custodians. Let's use a rational approach for collaborative custody, where maybe that company can retain a key, right? They're not the custodian, so they don't have complete control, but at least they have one of the keys in a 2 of 3 multi-sig vault, where they can say, all right, I can prove to my auditor, yes, this Bitcoin exists here. I know it's been here for such and such a period of time, and I can tell you beyond a reasonable doubt that it's there and it will be there in the future. This is the right way to do custody, but it's more difficult, right? And as Bitcoiners, we all like to do things the more difficult way, right? But we do it because it's the right way. What Gannett is doing on that qualified custody side is we are saying we can do that for you, right? We can help you manage a key. We can be the custodian because we have controls of the majority of the keys associated with a wallet, and we can solve for those problems. We can do that for institutions, not just for businesses, but also for family offices. And we can do that for other companies that are offering valuable services in the space, like investment advisors and other professionals. I don't need to go into this because I've covered it. The last thing I just want to do, and I want to be brief about this because I'm standing between us and happy hour. But I did want to mention, and I heard a couple of reasons why Wyoming, and this is really important to me. I'm originally from Wyoming. I'm like one of, a dozen of folks that are originally from Wyoming, and I had the opportunity to move back to Wyoming to start and run Gannett. And it's really important for us to recognize what a unique situation has been built here in Wyoming. 56 enabling statutes that not only help to solidify what Bitcoin is and how it should be treated, but also serve to help folks protect their legacies, right? You can't be compelled to give up private keys. You can take advantage of really great trust law, really great inheritance law here in Wyoming, really great tax laws in Wyoming. And this to us was a really compelling reason. And we also found that the regulatory environment, I'm going to dox myself, I'm a former bank regulator. And one of the things that I appreciated about going through the process with our local regulatory friends here in Wyoming is they understood what Bitcoin is. And they also understood that it's a partnership and we have to be open and receptive to new business models and new ways of doing things rather than just saying no. And that's the spirit that I think really embodies why we chose Wyoming to base. It's also just a beautiful place. So I would invite you to visit our website, GannettTrust.com. We have I'm gonna plug an event while I'm at an event. On the 15th of October, we're doing an event and it's an online event. Everybody is welcome to join. It's called Digital Wealth Frontiers. Again, I love the frontier element of being here in the West in Wyoming. And we are inviting folks that are family offices, allocators, Wall Street folks, but we're also going to hear from the professionals that are working in this space, the investment advisors, the tax planners, the attorneys that really understand the differences that you need to take or the special treatment you need to have for helping folks protect that legacy of Bitcoin. So I'm not going to take any questions because I know we're all eager to get out and have a bite to eat and maybe a beer. But I would love to have any conversations afterward. And thanks to the University of Wyoming for putting this on, to CBDI, Matt especially, and really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.